is a sexual disorder, often in the branch called paraphilias, that's often described by an intense desire to be with someone that's younger. Normally, this disorder starts with a child that's normally around the age of 13 or under 13 to 14. But something has been on the press here recently, and it's actually very pressing and very disturbing. And because we all have our pathologies that we struggle and deal with, a famous conscious person by the name of Brother Polight was actually indicted, or more or less alleged to have raped a 14-year-old girl who was the child of his girlfriend. You see, these type of things actually often happens a lot. But you never know the character of a man unless you live with a person. And many times, Brother Polight, a man that's really have been given a lot of respect in the conscious community, is no different than some of the modern day preachers, but also no different than so-called fake conscious people that talk from two sides of their mouth. Listen, Brother Polight is similar to Brother Umar Johnson to some degree. They are always caught up in some type of shenanigans that often appears to be very unsavory. And because of this, many people have actually beginning to have a disdain for people that actually call themselves to be benefactors to the black community, but often are charlatans and people that have an agenda. The fact that this young girl has been allegedly, and I say allegedly, raped by Mr. Polight, this young child now will have a schema affliction. Her schema affliction could be the possibility that she will see all men as bad, and her affliction will come because of pain anytime she associates sex with a man. And also, Brother Polight, he's going to have a schema affliction, but because if he's indicted, when he gets to prison, he's going to have the perception of being called a pedophile or a chomo, and the affliction could be him getting killed or stabbed in prison. Listen, we all have our pathologies that we deal with. And it's a possibility that Brother Polight himself could have been molested as a child. But however, that still does not justify the level of displeasure or the level of behaviors, if it's found to be true, that Mr. Polight actually is going to be accused of. Listen, molestation is something that's not genderless, it's just genderless. Molestation often happens not only with young girls, but it actually happens a lot with young boys as well. But because of the stigma associated with molestation, many boys often don't talk about the pain of being molested. And the travesty is that Brother Polight, someone that people actually look up into the conscious community, is actually a sign of the frailty of the human nature or the human essence. When you think about consciousness is tied to the word cognitions, and cognitions mean to be aware. But the sad thing is, a man like Brother Polight, one that many people are actually deemed to look up to, has been caught up in a triangle that's often so evident in this present day world that we live in, that many don't know who to go to for solace, many don't know who to go to for respect, and many don't know who to go to as it relates to leadership. There was a time that in the past when people used to say that word is bond. Your yea was yea and your nay was nay. But we live in a time now where that can't always be the truth. There are many predators in this community, and it's not limited only just to men. And also it's not limited to ethnicity, and it's not limited to socioeconomic status. And because of this, we got to take care to make sure that our children are protected from men like Brother Polight. I'm not going to call him Brother Polight, Mr. Polight, because the things that he have more or less exhibited, as it has been alleged, is actually tied to something negative and to something dark. Children that are protected by their fathers often are less victimized by sexual predators. And listen, in the clinical world, a lot of times, the children that are molested are actually by people that they actually know. But because of this pain and because of this indictment by this cruel man, this young baby, as I said earlier, is going to go through a lot of pain. And not only her, as I said earlier, many boys will go through pain because they have been impacted by someone that has touched them inappropriately or touched them in a negative way. If the allegations hold true, we must ask ourselves, are the people in the conscious community actually a facade? Are the people in the conscious community often, living in glass homes? Are the people in the conscious community often fragile mentally and often showboating only to get applause? Listen, I don't know, and I'm not going to indict everyone in the conscious community, but however, it's beginning to show a repeat pattern that many people in the conscious community are actually not really relics of the people that they more or less present. Will it hold true that this man Polight is an iconoclast now because of the choices and behaviors that he has made? Or will it hold true that many men will begin to look at many men in this space through the critical eye of inquiry, because many men are actually living up to, or more or less examining outcomes that are more or less deleterious to long-term sustainability? This man Polight, if you follow this man through the past, has often been a keen debater, someone that's swift with his mouth, someone that's swift with his intellect, a man that's had debates with Tommy Sotomayor, I believe, and others in the past. But because of this indictment, and because of the things, as I said, that's been alleged, someone's going to suffer and someone is going to go through pain. And because of that pain associated with being molested, this young girl and many young kids won't have the opportunity to express or explore themselves again in a consistent and or cohesive manner. Listen, you know, and I know someone has been impacted by the negativities of being touched as a child. And often these genderless crimes often go unannounced. They often go undetected, and they often would appear up later on in life when the person is older, anytime they're more or less caught up in an intimate relationship. And when they get in those intimate relationships, those pathologies begin to more or less become more manifest over a period of time where the person is going through what I would call this karmic cycle of pain, trying to redefine themselves because of the pain that has been afflicted upon them. So it's really unfortunate that people like this so-called intellectual Mr. Polight has been indicted on allegedly, as I say again, child molestation. But if he is, or if he ever becomes convicted of this crime, they need to throw this fool under jail. Because I don't care what your proclivities are. I don't care what your inclinations are. It is quite onerous to more or less impact that type of pain on a child that young. And so therefore, once again, if you've been going through something, please email me at kosherclinician.com. Please email me at kosherclinician.com. I want to help you talk about the things that you struggle with and work through it, and more or less give you the tools that are vital to help you to overcome the process of pain and the process of things that more or less have impacted you in a negative way. Now, I want you guys to remember this. If it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. If it ain't kosher, it ain't right. Schema afflictions are actually on the rise in this country that we live in. And this latest story by this fool called Mr. Polight is just one of the latest stories of children going through pain and young girls going through pain, but more or less undiagnosed issues with boys and girls going through pain. And unfortunately, if this child doesn't get the proper help that he or she needs in the future, will continue to go through mental health issues. Be well.